Part 1. Introduction. I always thought the scariest things in life came from the outside. Home intruders, monsters in the woods, even nightmares. But I was wrong. The scariest things live where we feel safest. They wait quietly, patiently, behind doors we never think to open. And sometimes they whisper. The first night it happened, I was asleep, wrapped in a blanket cocoon, far away from any sense of danger. That's when I heard it. A whisper from the closet, calling my name. And my life has never been the same since. Body. It started the night I moved into my new apartment. A studio on the second floor of an aging brick building. Cheap rent, high ceilings, creaky floors. The kind of place you talk yourself into liking, just to feel like you made the right decision. I was alone. That wasn't unusual. I like solitude. No roommates, no distractions. Just me and the sound of my fingers tapping my laptop keys and the occasional city noise wafting in through the open window. I unpacked my boxes slowly, stacking books on uneven shelves and arranging my few decorations in the hopes they'd make the place feel less hollow. The closet in the corner was large, oddly large, actually. It stretched wider than I expected and went deeper than it should have for a wall closet. It had a single sliding door and an overhead bulb with a pull string that clicked when I tugged it. The space smelled faintly of dust and something else stale, like air that had been trapped too long. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone has that one weird thing about their apartment. That night, I went to bed exhausted. The mattress still lay on the floor, and I had no curtains, just blinds that clacked in the wind. Around 2:14 a.m., I remember the time clearly. I stirred awake, not from a dream, but from the silence being broken. A whisper, faint but clear. It wasn't the kind of whisper you mishear in a dream. It was real, too real. A single word, Daniel. I froze. My name. I didn't move for a long moment. My heart beat like it was trying to escape my chest. I strained to hear more, to figure out where the voice had come from. And then I heard the second whisper. Daniel. This time I knew where it came from. The closet. I slowly turned my head toward it. The sliding door was shut exactly as I had left it. No shadows beneath, no movement. Just that still, humming silence that fills a room right after something terrifying happens. I tried to convince myself I imagined it. Maybe I was dreaming with my eyes open. Maybe I left the TV on and a commercial had used my name. Unlikely, but possible. But something inside me knew the truth. That whisper was real. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I kept my eyes locked on the closet door, waiting for it to rattle, to open, to breathe. The morning came, and everything looked exactly the same. Ordinary. I laughed at myself. Told myself I just had a long day, and my brain was playing tricks. I even opened the closet door to prove to myself nothing was there. The bulb flickered once, then settled. There were only clothes hanging, my jackets, a few shirts. On the floor, just a box of books I hadn't shelved yet. Nothing more. I left for work, brushing away the thought like dust from a windowsill. That night, it happened again. This time, I was prepared. I had placed a chair against the closet door, not because I thought it would stop anything, but because I wanted a sign, any sign, that I hadn't imagined at all. And sure enough, at exactly 2:14 a.m., I heard the whisper, Daniel, then the faint sound of something brushing against the inside of the door. I sat up, heart pounding, staring at the chair. It hadn't moved. Another whisper. Closer. Daniel, let me out. Goosebumps climbed up my arms. My mouth was dry. I wanted to speak, to shout, to scream, but I couldn't. I just stared. There was a long silence. No sound. No movement. I thought maybe it was over. Then, click, the light inside the closet turned on by itself. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I watched in horror as the light flickered and then dimmed. The bulb buzzed faintly behind the door. The chair was still in place. How was the light on? Summoning what little courage I had left, I crept toward the closet. Each step felt like a countdown to something terrible. I reached for the door handle, hand trembling. But just as I touched it, I heard something that made me back away instantly. Breathing. Slow, Heavy breathing from the other side. Not mine, not from outside the window, from inside the closet. I backed away, grabbed my keys, and left the apartment barefoot. I sat on the front steps of the building until dawn. I told my co-worker about it the next day. He laughed nervously and asked if I considered seeing someone. He mentioned sleep paralysis, auditory hallucinations, anything to explain it away. I nodded, agreed it was probably stress. But I knew, deep down I knew, that night I didn't go back. I booked a motel for a few days, tried to get some rest. But even there, I couldn't sleep properly. I felt something was with me now, like the whisper had followed. I came back to the apartment after 3 days. Everything was in place. The light in the closet was off. The chair hadn't moved. I stood staring at that door for a long time. That night, I didn't sleep in the bedroom. I laid on the couch with the TV on, hoping it would drown out the silence. But at exactly 2:14 a.m., the TV glitched. Just a flicker, a skip in the audio. And from the hallway behind me, I heard it. Daniel. But this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a breathless rasp, like someone pressing their mouth to my ear from just behind the couch. I jumped up, turned around. Nothing. The hallway was dark, empty. My skin was crawling, my ears ringing. I turned all the lights on, sat there until morning. Every night after that, the voice returned, sometimes whispering my name, sometimes saying other things. I see you. Let me out. You belong here. I started recording the audio at night. I needed proof. I left my phone by the closet and hit record. The next morning, I played it back. For the first hour, nothing. Just a hum of city noise and the occasional creak. Then a soft click, the closet light turning on, followed by a whisper. But not to me. This time, it was whispering to someone else. I replayed the section a dozen times, heart racing. The whisper said, "He still doesn't know. Soon." I deleted the recording. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want the evidence. Maybe I didn't want to hear it again. Maybe I was scared that if I played it too many times, I'd hear something new, something worse. I started sleeping with the lights on. I avoided the closet altogether. But whatever was inside, it was getting stronger, and it knew I was afraid. Part 2. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. My nerves were shot. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind outside the window made me jump. The air in the apartment felt heavier, like the walls were closing in, like the closet itself was watching me. I tried to convince myself that it was all in my head, that stress and exhaustion were making me paranoid. But I knew better. The closet wasn't just a space. It was something else. Something alive. That evening, I stood staring at the closet for nearly an hour, not moving. The light inside was off again, but I no longer trusted the silence. I didn't trust that just because I couldn't hear it. It wasn't still in there, waiting. Eventually, I decided to sleep in the living room again, clutching a kitchen knife like a child with a teddy bear. I knew it wouldn't help. You can't stab something that doesn't breathe. At 2:14 a.m., right on time, the whispers returned. Only this time, they didn't come from the closet. They came from the walls. It started faint, almost like the sound of someone breathing through drywall. And then came a voice, not calling my name, not asking for anything, just murmuring, a low, wet voice saying something I couldn't understand. I pressed my ear to the wall, heart hammering. It was speaking in some strange language, harsh and guttural, like it wasn't meant to be heard by human ears. It made me nauseous. My stomach twisted. I backed away and stumbled toward the bathroom, flipped on the light, and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, my face pale. Behind me, in the reflection, the closet door was slightly open, only a crack, but I knew it had been closed before. I hadn't heard it slide open. It just was. I spun around, my breath catching in my throat. The crack in the door seemed impossibly dark, not the kind of darkness from lack of light, but something deeper, like the absence of everything, like the end of a hallway that shouldn't exist. I moved slowly toward it, the knife still in my grip, even though it felt more like a toy in my shaking hands. I pressed my palm against the door and slid it open. Nothing. No breathing. No voice. Just that same box of books. The same row of jackets. But something had changed. The closet looked deeper now. The back wall was further away than before. I stepped inside, ducking slightly under the doorframe. My foot hit something hard. A wooden plank. The floor was different too. It wasn't the same carpeted base I remembered. It felt older. Rough wood, warped with time. I reached up to pull the string to the closet light. It was gone. I groped the air above me, feeling nothing. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the thick air, and that's when I saw it. There was no back wall. The closet now led into a narrow corridor lined with decaying wood, stretching into darkness. My heart nearly stopped. This couldn't be real. There was no way the dimensions of the apartment allowed for this. It made no sense. I stepped backward, out of the closet, and slammed the door shut. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since I moved in. I went upstairs to see the landlord. Mr. Fenley was in his 70s, wore the same gray cardigan every day, and seemed more interested in crossword puzzles than tenants. When I told him about the closet, he gave me a look I'll never forget. It wasn't confusion. It was fear. "You heard the voice?" he asked, almost in a whisper. I nodded slowly. He sighed and looked away. I warned the management about that unit. Should have sealed it off years ago. I stared at him, stunned. "What do you mean? What's in there?" He didn't answer immediately, just stared down at the table where his newspaper lay. Like the words printed, they were suddenly more comforting than my presence. "There was a girl who lived there before you," he finally said. "Marissa. Quiet, polite. Lived alone like you. One day she came down and asked me if I ever heard voices coming from the closet. I thought she was joking. What happened to her?" I asked. He looked up, eyes clouded. "One night, she vanished. No sign of a break-in. No forced entry. The door was locked from the inside, but the closet door was wide open. I felt ice crawl up my spine. We called the police," he continued. "They searched everything, found scratches inside the closet, like someone was trying to claw their way out. But there was no blood, no body, nothing. It was like she'd just dissolved." I couldn't breathe. My thoughts were spinning. "Why didn't you tell me this before I moved in?" I asked. "They don't let me," he muttered. "Management won't talk about it. And people always think I'm crazy when I bring it up. But he looked at me sharply. "You need to leave." That night, I packed a bag and booked another motel. But before I left, I did something stupid. I placed my phone in the closet again. This time, with the flashlight turned on, video recording. I had to know what it captured. I set it near the jackets, facing the back wall. Hit record. Closed the door. Then I left. The next morning, I returned to the apartment. I barely opened the door, just enough to reach in and grab the phone. The screen was dark, battery dead. I charged in the car and opened the video. At first, it was normal. A few minutes of stillness. Then the light flickered. The closet trembled slightly, like something moved inside the walls. And then the jacket started swaying. But not from wind, from something brushing past them. Suddenly, a hand appeared in the frame. Thin, pale, with impossibly long fingers. It reached out of the darkness and touched the phone lens briefly, then withdrew. That was all. I dropped the phone on the seat beside me, sick to my stomach. I drove away and didn't stop until I was 2 towns over. But the nightmare wasn't over. That night, at exactly 2:14 a.m., in my motel room, I heard it again. A whisper. "Daniel." But this time, it wasn't coming from the closet. There wasn't a closet. It was coming from the bathroom. And the door was slightly open. Part 3. I froze. The whisper echoed in my mind long after the sound faded. The bathroom door sat half open, casting a sliver of darkness into the otherwise dim motel room. The air had shifted, heavier, like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room and replaced with something thicker, something foreign. I knew I hadn't opened that door. I remembered shutting it when I arrived. I remember being shut when I brushed my teeth an hour ago. But now it was open, only slightly, as though inviting me in. I stepped backward until my back hit the wall. My heart thudded against my ribs, loud and insistent, as I tried to tell myself that this was impossible. This wasn't my apartment. There was no closet. Whatever I'd left behind in that building, it couldn't follow me, except it had. I grabbed the motel phone and tried to dial the front desk, but the line was dead. No dial tone. No click. Just silence. I glanced at the digital clock on the nightstand. 2:14 a.m. The same time. Every night. The voice hadn't changed. It was still whispering my name the same way that back home. Soft, urgent, almost pleading. But this time, it sounded closer. I stood there, waiting for something to happen. 5 seconds. 10. A full minute. The door didn't move, and neither did I. My phone sat on the bed, battery charged, camera ready. I picked it up, opened a recording app, and pointed it at the bathroom. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, if you wanted to see, show me." I pressed record. For the first 30 seconds, nothing happened. Just the image of the half-open door and a slice of blackness inside the tile bathroom. Then, very slowly, the door creaked open another inch. There was no wind, no vibration, nothing that should have made it move. But it did. Smooth, quiet, deliberate. And then the whisper returned. "Daniel." I dropped the phone. The screen cracked as it hit the floor. The voice had come not from the bathroom, but from right behind me. I spun around. No one. Just the threadbare curtains hanging over the window. I backed away again, my skin crawling. Something was toying with me. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights on, the TV playing static in the background to drown out the silence. But the whisper came again at 3:17, and again at 4:04. Each time, from a different spot in the room. Something had attached itself to me. The next morning, I packed up and left without checking out. I didn't care about the deposit. I didn't care about my job. I just needed answers. So I went back, not to the apartment, but to the building, to the source. It was midday when I arrived. Bright sunlight filtered through the clouds, but the building still looked gray and lifeless. A mausoleum. I climbed the stairs to the top floor and knocked on Mr. Fenley's door. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. I tried the knob. It was unlocked. The apartment was dark, blinds drawn. A stale odor hung in the air, something between mildew and old paper. "Mr. Fenley?" I called. No response. I stepped inside, cautiously. The apartment looked untouched. Coffee mug on the table. Crossword half finished. But no sign of the old man. On the kitchen counter was a thick manila folder. My name was written on it in shaky handwriting. I opened it. Inside were photographs, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, and at the very top, a Polaroid of a young woman standing in front of the same closet in my apartment. Her eyes were wide with fear. In the background, the closet door stood slightly open. Marissa. One of the notes was dated 3 years ago. She said the voice only came after midnight. Said it started with whispers, then visions. She claimed the closet moved when she wasn't looking. I thought she was sick, but now I'm not so sure. Another read. I heard myself last night. Just once. My name. In the hallway. At the bottom of the folder was a faded blueprint of the building, dated in 1947. The strange part was the layout. The apartment where I lived had no closet. None. It hadn't been part of the original structure. I scanned the blueprint, tracing the lines. According to the document, the area behind the bedroom wall was once a sealed maintenance tunnel. Not accessible. Not meant for use. But something had broken through. That night, I returned to the apartment. I didn't go inside. I just stood outside the building, watching the windows. At 2:14 a.m., I saw the bedroom light flicker on. No one was inside. I knew that. I hadn't given the key to anyone. Then the closet light came on. I couldn't look away. I felt like something inside was staring back through the glass. And then in the darkness of the empty room, I saw a shape, not a person, Not exactly. It was like a distortion. Like the air itself was bending, forming into something tall and thin, hunched forward, crawling out of the closet. I turned and ran. The next day, I took the blueprint and every note from the folder to a local historian, a woman named Evelyn, who specialized in older buildings. She studied the blueprints carefully, flipping through the old photos I'd taken from Fenley's apartment. "This is strange," she murmured. "The original structure did have a closet here, but it was sealed off in 1952 after a tenant went missing." My skin prickled. "Missing? According to this," she said, tapping a police report, "a man named Gerald Sykes disappeared one night. Neighbors heard strange noises, thumping, whispers, scratching. No sign of forced entry. But the closet in his apartment had claw marks on the inside. I felt lightheaded. Was there ever an investigation?" She shook her head. "They chalked it up to mental illness. Close the case. But these symbols," she pointed to a photograph from the folder, "these are old, pre-Christian, protective markings. People used to carve them into walls to trap spirits." "Trap?" I echoed. She looked at me with solemn eyes. "Or bind." That night, I returned to the apartment with a plan. Salt, sage, a hammer, and chalk. I was going to seal the closet. The first thing I did was draw a circle around the doorframe in chalk, then line the edges with salt. I burned sage until the air was thick with it. Then I nailed the closet door shut. The room felt lighter afterward, like a weight had lifted. For the first time in weeks, I slept, but peace never lasts. At 2:14 a.m., I awoke to a new sound. Knocking, not from the closet, from inside the walls. And a voice, louder now, more urgent. "Daniel, you locked me out. Let me back in." I covered my ears, but the voice burrowed into my thoughts like needles. And then the closet door creaked. Even though I had nailed it shut, I turned toward it, and the final nail popped free on its own, clattering to the floor. The others began to shift, trembling, resisting the force trying to break through. The chalk circle burned away like it had been drawn in gasoline, and the salt vanished. I stood frozen, helpless, as the last nail twisted loose and dropped with a dull clink. The closet door eased open. Inside was not my closet. It was a corridor, a shifting void lined with clawed wooden walls, dripping black liquid, and stretching far beyond the dimensions of the building, a place not meant for human eyes. And from the shadows, something stepped out. Part 4. It wasn't human, not even close. The thing that stepped out of the closet, out of that impossible hallway, moved like a shadow detached from its owner. It had limbs, yes, but they weren't quite right. Too long, joints bending in unnatural directions. Its face, if you could call it that, had no eyes, just a stretched mouth that twitched at the corners, like it was trying to remember how to smile. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. The room had gone ice cold, the air thick and humming like there was a pressure inside it I couldn't see. My ears popped, my vision blurred. All I could hear was the voice. "Daniel." It didn't speak with its mouth. It spoke directly into my mind. I staggered backward, my knees hitting the bed frame. I dropped the hammer. The creature took another step out of the closet, one hand grazing the edge of the doorway. Where its fingers touched the wall, the paint peeled and turned black, like it was rotting in real time. Then, suddenly, it stopped, its head tilted, listening. Something else was coming. I didn't know how I knew that, only that the thing in my closet wasn't alone. And it wasn't the worst thing. A second voice whispered out from the hallway, from inside the closet, and this one was deeper, more guttural, ancient. The shadow thing turned and stepped back into the corridor, vanishing into the black. The door began to close by itself. I lunged forward, grabbing it, trying to slam it shut, but something resisted. Something on the other side wanted it open. My muscles burned as I fought against the invisible force. I felt pressure against the door, felt the cold seeping through like fingers brushing against mine. Then I remembered the salt. I grabbed the last pouch from my backpack and scattered the grains across the floor, across the threshold of the closet. The pressure vanished instantly. The door slammed shut. This time, I didn't bother with nails. I dragged the dresser across the floor and shoved it against the door, piling everything heavy I could find in front of it. Books, my suitcase, the mattress. I collapsed on the floor, my chest heaving. My phone buzzed beside me. I had no idea how it was working again, but the screen lit up with a message. Unknown number. You saw it. Another message followed. That's only the beginning. I stared at the screen. My hands trembled as I typed back. Who is this? No reply. For the next 2 days, I stayed in the apartment, trying to figure out what to do. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I kept the lights on. Every single night, at exactly 2:14 a.m., the knocking began again, not from the door, but from the walls. Tap, 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 and the voice. Always the voice. Daniel. It was different now. Louder. Desperate. Sometimes it sounded like my mother. Sometimes like Mr. Fenley. Sometimes like myself. I started to think I was losing my mind. Then came the scratching. First, it was faint. A dull scraping behind the drywall, like fingernails clawing from the inside out. Then it grew louder, sharper, more frenzied. Something was trying to dig through. On the third night, the mirror in the bathroom cracked down the middle. I hadn't touched it. I watched it shatter on its own, a web of fractures splitting the glass like ice on a frozen lake. Words appeared in the fog when I took a breath near it. You opened the door. I backed away slowly, and as I did, the fog faded and the words vanished. That's when the lights went out. The entire apartment was plunged into darkness. My phone flickered, then died completely. Not out of battery, just dead. I stood frozen in place. Then, from the hallway, I heard something dragging across the floor. Not footsteps, something being pulled. I edged toward the living room window and peeked through the blinds. The hallway was empty, but the air shimmered just slightly like heat rising off asphalt. And in that shimmer, I saw faces, dozens of them, pressed against the walls, stretched out from behind the plaster, like plastic wrap over a screen. Some had mouths wide open. Others had hollow eyes. They were trapped. I stumbled back, heart hammering. Whatever this was, it wasn't just my closet. It was the building. The entire place was infected. And the voices, they were just the beginning. The lights flickered back on at 3:01 a.m. My phone rebooted at the same time. I checked my messages. One new text from the same unknown number. There's a way to stop it, but it has a price. I typed back immediately. What price? What do I have to do? No reply. Just a photo. It was of me, standing in my apartment, taken from inside the closet. That was the last straw. I grabbed my keys and left. I didn't pack anything. I didn't even put on shoes. I just ran. Outside, the street was eerily empty. No traffic. No people. Just rows of dark windows and flickering streetlights. I jumped into my car and started the engine, but the dashboard lights flickered. The radio hissed static. Then a voice cut through. Daniel. I punched the power off and floored the gas, tires screeching as I tore down the road. But the voice stayed with me, no matter how far I drove. By dawn, I was 50 miles away, parked in an abandoned rest stop. I sat in silence, trying to calm my breathing, when the radio flickered back on. A new voice this time, not whispering, speaking. You let it in. Now it's part of you. My reflection in the rear view mirror blinked, but I didn't. It smiled. Part 5. I didn't go back. Even after a week on the road, sleeping in my car, eating gas station food, and keeping my phone turned off most of the time, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still with me, that something had followed me when I left the apartment. My reflection was the first clue. No matter how many mirrors I looked into, public bathrooms, shop windows, even car side mirrors, my reflection always lagged. Just a fraction of a second too late. Enough to notice. Enough to unnerve. Then there were the shadows. They didn't match. I'd be standing under a single bulb in a diner, and instead of one shadow on the wall, there would be two. One attached to me, the other a little to the left, a little delayed. People noticed. The waitress at a small cafe in Montana spilled coffee all over herself the moment she looked over my shoulder. A gas station attendant in Nebraska muttered a prayer under his breath and refused to take my money. And always, at exactly 2:14 a.m., no matter where I was, I'd hear the whisper, "Daniel." Sometimes it came from the vents, sometimes from the trunk. Once in a rest stop bathroom, it echoed from the pipes under the sink. It had found a way out of the closet. It had come with me. One night, parked behind an abandoned barn off a back road in Kansas, I tried to end it. I wrote a note, scribbled it on the back of an old receipt. "It's inside me. Don't open the closet." I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and raised a pistol I bought at a pawn shop 2 days before. The moment the barrel touched my temple, the whisper changed. It screamed, not words, just rage. The windows shattered inward, glass flying like shrapnel. My headlights burst. The horn blared on its own. And in the rear-view mirror, my reflection lunged forward, pressing its face against the glass from the inside. Its mouth moved. "You're mine now." I dropped the gun. The car stopped shaking. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't try again. The next morning, my phone buzzed to life without warning. One new message. Same unknown number. "There's a house in Black Hollow. Go there. It's the only way." I didn't ask how they knew where I was. I didn't want to know. I just drove. Black Hollow was a speck of a town in northern Colorado, buried between mountain ridges and forgotten roads. It didn't appear on most maps. Even my GPS struggled to find it. The air grew colder as I approached. The trees denser. The town itself looked like something out of a ghost story. Peeling signs, boarded up shops, empty streets. But people lived there. Quiet people. Staring people. And at the edge of town, past a wrought iron gate that hadn't swung open in decades, stood a house that should not have existed. It was Victorian, tall and narrow, built from dark that seemed to drink in the sunlight. The windows were fogged from the inside. The shingles curled like claws. And yet I felt drawn to it, compelled. Inside, the air smelled of rot and mildew. The wallpaper was peeling, and the floorboards groaned under my weight. But everything felt preserved, like it hadn't aged, just waited. In the center of the living room sat a single wooden chair, and a large mirror leaned against the far wall, carved into glass. "Speak your name and see the truth." I didn't want to, but I had no choice. I stood in front of the mirror, heart hammering, and whispered, "Daniel." The surface of the mirror rippled. And then I wasn't alone. My reflection stepped forward. It smiled, that twisted too wide grin, and spoke in my voice. "You never close the door." Then, in one smooth movement, it reached through the glass. Its hand gripped my arm. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. The cold spread through me like ice water in my veins. Flashes surged in my mind, images of the closet door swinging open, the impossible hallway behind it, the faces screaming in silence, the thing with no eyes, and one moment I'd never seen before. Me, as a child, standing in front of that same closet, whispering, laughing, holding the door open. Had it always been there? Had I let it in long before I remembered? The reflection spoke again, voice layered with hundreds of others. "We are the silence behind the door, the shadow behind the light, the name whispered before sleep. You belong to us." Then it pulled. I fell through the mirror. I didn't hit the floor. I hit nothing. Fell into blackness, endless and cold. Voices swirled around me. My parents, teachers, strangers, all say my name in different tones. Angry, fearful, loving, warning. Then I landed, not hard, like I'd been gently placed. I stood up, heart racing, and looked around. I was back in the apartment, but it was wrong. The colors were inverted. The furniture rotted. The air was thick, humming with static. My closet door stood wide open. The hallway beyond stretched out like before, and from inside came footsteps. But not toward me. Away. I followed. I walked for what felt like hours, deeper and deeper into the impossible space. The walls were lined with old photos. People I'd never met, all staring at the camera with hollow eyes. Some were blurred. Some were scratched out. I recognized one. It was me. The moment I looked at it, it bled. The footsteps stopped ahead. Then the voice. Daniel, it's time to remember. Something was waiting in the dark. Something that had worn my face. Part 6. I should have turned back. Every step forward felt like another piece of myself being peeled away. The corridor behind me had vanished, replaced by endless darkness, as if the house, or whatever this place really was, had consumed the path I came from. The walls grew tighter, pressing in. I had to crouch, then crawl. Cold hands brushed my ankles. But when I looked back, nothing except the voice. It wasn't whispering anymore. It was humming, a low, tuneless lullaby that made my teeth ache. Then I saw it, a flicker of light ahead, pale, flickering. I crawled faster, desperate to reach it. I emerged into a room that looked like a twisted version of my childhood bedroom. Same pale blue walls, same wooden bed frame, same crooked window, but everything was decayed, covered in mold, dust floating in the thick air like snow. And sitting at the edge of the bed was me, or a version of me, younger, maybe 10 years old, legs swinging, face blank. He looked up. "Do you remember now?" the boy asked. My mouth was dry. "Remember what?" "You left the door open." The closet door creaked behind him, not fully open, just a crack, like it was listening. I shook my head. I was a kid. I didn't know. "You did know," he interrupted. "You made the pact." He reached under the bed and pulled out a small box. I knew that box. My childhood secrets were in there, drawings, toys, dead bugs. But when he opened it this time, there were only 3 things inside. 1, a photo of me standing in front of the closet, hand on the knob, smiling. 2, a black feather, oily and twitching like it was alive. 3, a folded note. He handed it to me. I opened it slowly. "You said yes. And once the door opens, it never truly closes." I stumbled back, heart racing. What did I let in? I whispered. The boy didn't answer. He began to hum that same eerie lullaby, and as he did, his skin began to crack. Flake. He was turning into ash before my eyes. I reached for him, but the moment I touched his arm, it crumbled, and then I was alone again, except for the whisper behind me. "Daniel." I turned. The closet was wide open. I should have run, but something was pulling me in, not physically, mentally. A pressure, like a hook behind my eyes, dragging me forward. Inside the closet, the hallway was no longer just long and dark. It was alive. The floor pulsed like flesh. The walls breathed. Every few feet, a door appeared, each different. Some wooden, some metal, some made of things I couldn't recognize. The first door I passed had no handle, just deep scratch marks trailing down its length. Something inside was breathing heavily, wetly. The second was cracked open. Inside, I saw a hospital room, monitors beeping, and someone lying motionless in a bed. I leaned closer, realized it was me, a version of me. Comatose, tubes in my nose. Family sitting nearby, crying. Was this real? A possible future? I slammed the door shut. The hallway shifted. The ceiling bent lower, like it was watching me. The third door was different. A child's bedroom, wallpaper peeling with cartoon stars, and in the center, a closet just like mine. Inside it, something moved. A hand reached out, not to grab, but to offer something. A mask, skin-colored, human, and it whispered, "You can wear a new name, start over." I stepped back. The hallway darkened. I ran. I passed door after door, each flashing a different life. A burning house, a forest with dozens of hanging bodies, a room filled with mirrors, all showing me screaming in silence. But one door glowed, the only one that felt familiar. I stopped in front of it. It looked exactly like the front door of my old apartment. I opened it. I was back. Or it looked like I was. Everything was in place. My couch, my TV, the smell of burnt coffee. But there was a silence that felt unnatural, pressurized, Then the lights flickered, and I saw her, Mia, standing in the kitchen, eyes wide, lips trembling. "Mia," I whispered. She stepped toward me, but her feet didn't touch the ground. She glided, her head tilted too far to the left, bones popping. "Why didn't you help me?" she asked. Her voice echoed twice. "I thought you left," I stammered. "You were gone. You left me in the walls. What are you talking about?" She opened her mouth wider than should have been possible. From within her throat came the voice, the real one, the one that had followed me since the closet. "Daniel." Her body collapsed. The lights burst. Darkness swallowed the room. And then it was there. It didn't crawl or walk or slither. It formed, first as smoke, then as a figure, humanoid, but wrong. Elongated limbs, hollow sockets, teeth that weren't just sharp, they were layered. It smiled. "You gave me a name," it said in a voice that sounded like mine layered over 100 others. "That was the key. The first night you answered the whisper." My mind raced back. Age 10, scared of the dark, hearing the voice and whispering back just once. Just once. I didn't know. I whispered, but I did. It stepped forward. I couldn't move. You opened the door, and now the house is inside you. I fell to my knees. "Why me?" It leaned close, "Because you were the only one who answered back." Then it reached into my chest. No pain, just cold. I screamed, but my voice didn't leave my mouth. It echoed behind me. I turned and saw me, standing in the corner, eyes blank, watching. Then another version, and another, dozens of me, each from a different time. One crying, one laughing, one clutching a knife, and all of them whispered in unison, "You are the house now." Part 7. They say you can't be in two places at once. But they were wrong. I stood in that room, staring at myself across the space, while the air pulsed like lungs around us. My other selves, the versions that had emerged from the dark corners, circled me, eyes blank, expressions unreadable. Some looked like me now. Others were distorted, missing eyes, grinning with bloody mouths, skin pale and stretched like worn paper. But they were all me. Fragments. Echoes. Something the house had kept. No, not the house. It. The thing I had let in. I stepped backward, heart hammering, but there was no door anymore. No walls. Only darkness and myself multiplied into a grotesque audience. One of the copies stepped forward. He was younger, probably 17. A crooked scar across his cheek. "I tried to run," he said. "It didn't matter. It's not about the place. It's about the door inside." Another stepped forward. This one much older, gray hair, sunken eyes. He didn't speak. He just pointed behind me. I turned. The closet door was back. It stood freestanding in the middle of the void. The same scratch wood, same rusted knob. It didn't need to be attached to anything. It was everything. And it was open. Barely. "Do I go in?" I asked, but no one answered. The copies of me began to flicker, like old television static. Then one by one, they blinked out of existence. No screams. No drama. Just gone. Until I was alone again, with the door. I approached slowly. My hand trembled as I reached the knob, not because I feared what was on the other side, but because I feared what I already knew was there. It whispered my name again, not from behind the door, but within my skull, like it lived in the folds of my brain now. When I touched the knob, I expected a jolt, pain, heat, but it was cold, and it turned easily. The door creaked open to reveal my living room. Again, everything normal. TV muted, couch slightly crooked, the faint hum of the fridge in the background. But this time, I was on the couch, sleeping. This wasn't a memory. I could feel the heartbeat of the moment, fresh and real, a version of now that hadn't happened yet, or maybe already had. I stepped into the room, heart pounding. My sleeping self stirred but didn't wake. And then the closet door in the corner, the one I never remembered seeing before, opened on its own. Black mist slithered out. The thing stepped forward. Tall, familiar, faceless. It hovered over the sleeping version of me, its hand reaching down. I screamed, tried to stop it, but no sound came. My legs wouldn't move. I was trapped inside the vision. Then, just before it touched me, the dream version opened his eyes and whispered something. I couldn't hear it, but the thing recoiled, screeched, and melted into shadow. The closet slammed shut, and suddenly I was back inside the void. The copies of me were there again, but fewer this time. Just one now, the 10-year-old version, the one who started it all. He looked up at me with wet, angry eyes. "You forgot the words," he said. "What words?" "The words we were told when we made the deal." "I don't remember." He pointed to his chest. "It does." And then he walked toward me, each step echoing like thunder in a place with no walls. As he got closer, he began to change. His skin darkened, teeth lengthened, hands stretched into claws. By the time he stood in front of me, he wasn't a boy anymore. He was it, smiling. "You can end this," it hissed, "but not by running." "Then how?" "By remembering." Then everything exploded into light. I woke up in my bed, breath shallow, body drenched in sweat. Sunlight filtered through the blinds. Was it a dream? I sat up. The room was normal. My room. No flickering shadows. No strange doors. I stumbled to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. When I looked in the mirror, my reflection blinked out of sync with me. Just once. A flicker. And I remembered everything. The pact. The name. The invitation. The first night I heard the voice. I was 10, hiding from my parents' fighting. Crawled into the closet to escape the yelling. It was dark, quiet, until I heard a voice whisper, "You don't have to be scared." And I whispered back, "Okay." That was the moment. That was when I said yes. Not with words, but with fear, with trust. The creature didn't need a signature. It needed permission. I gave it that. And ever since, it had been feeding. Not just on me, on everything connected to me. Mia, my past, my possible futures. I opened the medicine cabinet. A slip of paper was taped to the inside. I didn't remember putting it there. It was a drawing, childlike, crude, a closet door, eyes peeking out, and underneath it, in shaky handwriting, "It wants to live through you." I backed away slowly and heard the whisper, not from the closet, not from the walls, from inside me. "Daniel, it wasn't a haunting. It was emerging." That's what the creature wanted. Not to kill me, but to become me, to wear my skin, my memories, my voice. And I had been helping it. Every time I ran, every time I doubted reality, every time I looked at the closet and chose to ignore the scratching. I had fed it, but I wasn't good at it anymore. I stood before the closet one final time. The door now looked different, less old, more like flesh stretched over wood. It pulsed. I pressed my hand to it. I remember I whispered, "And I don't accept you anymore." The air shifted. The walls trembled. From inside, the voice roared, not whispered. Too late. I pulled the door open. Nothing. Just a void. And then, asterisk, I stepped in. Part 8. The void wasn't empty. It only looked that way at first, like staring into an abyss that had forgotten what light was. But once I crossed the threshold, it became something else. Not a place, not a dream, not even a memory. It was a mind. And it wasn't mine. The air was thick, pressing against my skin like wet cloth. Every breath I took sounded like a scream muffled underwater. The darkness wasn't just around me. It was inside me, curling in my lungs and behind my eyes. Then I heard it again. "Daniel." Not whispered, not threatening. Just said. I turned, though I knew there was nothing to turn toward. And yet there was the thing. No shape, no face. Just a mass of shifting shadows that pulsed and twisted like it was alive. But within its core, a mirror. My face, staring back at me. You finally came, it said, my voice echoing from its depths. You've been feeding me for years. I didn't know what I was doing, I said. You didn't want to know. Fear is easier than truth. It tastes better, too. I clenched my fists. What are you? It laughed. A hollow, grinding sound that echoed like bones snapping under pressure. I'm what waits, what grows. Every time a child listens to the dark instead of the light, I'm there. And you, Daniel. Oh, you were so loud in your fear. It stepped closer, the mirror face now shifting rapidly. My face at different ages, laughing, crying, screaming. I want to live, it said. And you are my way. I shook my head. No, not anymore. It stopped. The shadows rippled, like a storm stalling mid-thunder. You invited me, it said. I was a child. That is the invitation. I didn't reply. Instead, I reached into my pocket. I didn't know why, only that something told me to. My fingers brush paper, the drawing, the one from the medicine cabinet. I unfolded it slowly. The image of the closet, the eyes, the words beneath. It wants to live through you. The shadows recoiled, slightly, almost imperceptibly. You remember, it said again, voice colder now. I looked up, and I know how to stop you. The thing shrieked, not from pain, but anger, like it had been cheated, betrayed, and in a way, maybe it had. I had always run, always denied. But now I understood. It didn't just live in the closet. It lived in me, in choices, in silence, in the years I refused to acknowledge the thing watching me sleep. To kill it, I'd have to kill that part of me, the child who made the deal. I need to see him, I said. The creature froze. Its shadows pulse in chaotic waves. No, I do, I said. You said he's still inside me. Then, from behind the creature, a door appeared. Wooden, small, painted blue, my childhood closet. I walked toward it. The creature lunged. But it couldn't touch me. Not now. The door creaked open. Inside was my old room. The twin bed. The glowing nightlight. The Batman poster with the rip in the corner. And on the floor, me, 10 years old. Knees pulled to chest. Crying silently. I stepped in. The boy didn't look up. I'm sorry, I said. He didn't move. I shouldn't have left you alone all those years. Still nothing. I knelt beside him, heart aching. You were scared. You needed someone. And I turned away from you. Let something else answer you. He finally looked at me. His eyes were bottomless black. Why now? He asked. Because I want to end this. He blinked. Tears fell again, but this time they were red. You can't save me. I don't have to, I said. I have to forgive you. He stared at me and smiled. Not a child smile. It smiled. I recoiled, but too late. The boy reached up and pushed his hand into my chest. I screamed. My mind split into two, 1,000 timelines crashing through me. All the versions of me that could have been, all the futures where I didn't stop this, where the creature won. In each one I died screaming, but not in this one. I woke up on the floor of my apartment, coughing, gasping, bleeding. The closet stood open. The creature, half emerged, its limbs glitching between shadow and flesh. You gave him too much, it rasped. You're nothing now. Maybe, but that small piece I gave to the boy, it wasn't mine anymore. I didn't give it in fear. I gave it in love, forgiveness, and the creature couldn't eat that. I pulled myself up, staggered toward the closet, and screamed. You can't have me. The creature lunged again, but this time I held the drawing in front of me like a shield. It shrieked, recoiling, burning at the edges like paper in flame. I stepped forward, forcing it back. I'm not yours. Another step. I never was. Another. The shadows peeled away like skin in a storm. And then the creature collapsed inward, into itself, into the mirror that floated behind it. The last thing I saw in the glass before it shattered was me, smiling, but it wasn't my smile. And then blackness. I woke up in a hospital bed. Mia sat beside me, tears on her cheeks. "You've been out for 3 days," she said. I tried to speak. My throat hurt. "You were found unconscious in your apartment," she continued. "Doctors said it looked like a seizure. But what?" "They found your closet door ripped off the hinges. From the inside." I closed my eyes. It was over. I hoped. But that night, as I lay in a hospital bed, I heard it again. Not a whisper, not a scream, just a soft, familiar voice. "Daniel." Part 9. The hospital was quiet that night. Too quiet. Even the distant hum of machines, the rhythmic beeping of heart monitors from nearby rooms, and the occasional footsteps of nurses seemed muffled, as though the walls had begun to absorb sound. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My throat was sore, my chest ached, and every muscle in my body felt as if it had been wrung dry. But that wasn't what kept me awake. It was a voice. Not loud, not angry, just present, just there. "Daniel." It came from the closet in the corner of the hospital room. A standard built-in utility cabinet, tall and narrow, with plain white doors. I hadn't noticed it until now. I wished I still hadn't. I told myself it was nothing, a side effect of the trauma. Auditory hallucinations, maybe. My brain filling in silence with nightmares it hadn't yet released. But I knew better. That thing, whatever it was, had followed me, or maybe it had never really left. In the morning, I asked to be discharged. The doctors resisted at first, citing abnormal scans, strange readings from my sleep cycles, and periods of elevated brain activity while I was unconscious. But I didn't care. I needed out of that building. Mia drove me home in silence, her eyes darting toward me now and then. She didn't ask questions. Not yet. But when we reached my apartment and she helped me inside, she finally spoke. "You're different," she said. I nodded slowly. "I feel different." "Not just that," she whispered. "There's something in your eyes, like there's someone else behind them." I couldn't look at her, not because she was wrong, but because she might be right. The creature hadn't fully vanished. It had retreated, somewhere deeper, somewhere I hadn't yet reached. That night I dreamt, but not in color, not in sound. The dream was feeling dense, wet air, the pressure of watching eyes, the cold knowledge that something ancient and patient lay just beyond a veil of waking. I stood in front of the mirror again, but this time my reflection didn't move with me. It smiled first, then whispered, "You're not strong enough." I woke up gasping. Mia was gone. The apartment was dark. My phone was dead. The clock on the wall blinked 3 a.m. I walked down the hallway. The floor beneath my feet colder than it should have been. Every step felt heavier, like gravity was slowly increasing. The closet door was shut. I hadn't closed it. A chill ran down my spine. I reached for the handle. Paused. There were scratches on the wood. Deep, like something inside had been clawing its way out. My hand trembled as I opened it. Empty, except a voice from deep within. Not loud, not close, far. "Daniel, come back." And then Mia's scream from the other room. I ran, heart hammering in my chest. She wasn't there. Just her phone, lying face down on the floor. The screen cracked. Blood smeared across the glass. No signs of forced entry. No broken windows. Just a silence. And then a noise from inside the walls. Crawling. Scraping. I pressed my ear to the drywall. Whispers. Muffled crying. Laughter. It was everywhere. And nowhere. The creature wasn't a thing anymore. It was in the house. In me. I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Mia was gone. Taken. Or worse, consumed. Because I had brought it back. I never banished it. I only made it angry. The drawing, the one I had used to repel it before, was gone. Burnt. Erased from existence. I was defenseless. But something inside me whispered, "You've always had the key." I closed my eyes, searched my mind, and I saw it. The closet door from my childhood. Only now it was open, and inside, stairs. Leading down. I opened my eyes. I was still in my living room, but in front of me, where the wall should have been, was the closet door, the same one from the dream. Old, blue, flickering faintly with a light that didn't seem to come from anywhere. I stood, approached. My fingers brushed the doorknob. Warm, too warm. I opened it. Darkness greeted me like an old friend. The stairs descended into black, and I followed, one step, then another. The door slammed shut behind me. The descent was endless. The walls were tight, lined with old photographs. My childhood face in all of them, but the eyes were always wrong. Empty, smiling when I remembered crying, frowning when I knew I had laughed. It was rewriting my past, rebuilding its truth over mine. At the bottom of the stairs, I found a room, a perfect replica of my childhood bedroom. The same bed, same desk, same smell of musty carpets and crayon wax. And in the center, Mia, tied to the chair, eyes wide, mouth sewn shut. She thrashed when she saw me, screaming behind the stitches. I ran to her, but a shadow separated from the wall, coalescing into shape. The creature. It was me, older, taller, smiling. "You keep trying to forget," it said, "but you remember now." I stepped forward. It raised a hand. The room shifted. The walls melted into flesh. The floor pulsed beneath me like a heartbeat. This was no longer a memory. It was its domain. The creature walked around me, studying me like an artist admiring their masterpiece. "You fed me for decades," it whispered. "Fear, shame, denial. Every night you pretended I wasn't real. I became stronger." I said nothing. "You came here to stop me," it continued. "But what will you trade for her?" It gestured to Mia, whose eyes pleaded with me. "I don't make deals with monsters anymore," I said. The creature tilted its head. "But you are the monster." It snapped its fingers, and I saw it, all at once. Every memory I had buried, the things I'd seen, the moments I told myself were nightmares. They were real, and I had let them happen. I was the door. I was the invitation. I was the reason it had been able to grow. Mia began to fade, her body dissolving into shadow. I screamed, "No!" The creature reached out, touching my chest, and I saw her, Mia, standing at my closet, opening it, welcoming it, becoming it. "No!" I cried. "I told you," it whispered. "You're not strong enough." But then, from the dark corner of the room, a sound, a heartbeat, not the creature's, not mine, a child's, the boy from my dreams, from my memories. He stepped forward, small, innocent, terrified, but brave. He held out the drawing, not the old one, a new one. This time it was me, older, stronger, holding the closet door shut. The boy smiled, and I understood. I took the drawing, held it high. The creature howled, retreating. Its skin peeled back. Its face cracked. Mia's bonds fell away. She ran to me, sobbing. Together, we stood as the creature collapsed into ash, its scream swallowed by the echoing heartbeat. The walls of the room splintered. Light pierced the darkness. And then we woke up, back in my apartment, just after midnight. Mia looked at me. "You saved me." "No," I whispered. "We saved each other." The closet door creaked. I stood slowly, walked to it, opened it. Empty, but on the floor, a single drawing, a child's hand, holding my hand, and beneath it, scribbled in crayon. He closed the door this time. Part 10. The morning light spilled softly into the apartment, chasing away the oppressive shadows that had clung to the walls for so long. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the air was clear, light, even. Mia and I sat together on the couch, exhausted but alive. The heaviness inside me had lifted, replaced by a fragile hope. I looked at the closet door. Closed. Silent. Just a simple wooden door, painted white, blending into the room as if nothing had ever happened. But I knew better. That door was a gateway, a place where fear, doubt, and darkness had nested. And now it was quiet. For now. I reached down and picked up the drawing lying on the floor. It was crayon on lined paper, my younger self's shaky handwriting scribbled beneath the image. He closed the door this time. I traced the lines of the closet on the page. A small, tentative smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Closing that door hadn't just been about pushing back the creature. It was about reclaiming myself. Days passed. The world outside continued, as if unaware of the war I just fought. But inside me, everything had changed. Mia stayed close. I told her pieces of the story. Enough to warn her, but not enough to frighten her. Sometimes, late at night, the silence in the apartment was so deep, I thought I'd hear the faintest whisper from the closet, but there was only quiet. One evening, as I prepared dinner, the phone rang. I answered. No one spoke, just the sound of breathing. Slow, steady. I hung up, heart racing. The darkness wasn't gone. It had only faded. Waiting, watching. I knew the fight wasn't over. The creature had been a part of me, a shadow born from pain and neglect. And shadows never truly disappear. But now I had light, the strength to close doors, to face the darkness. That night, before sleep claimed me, I placed the drawing carefully on my nightstand. A reminder, a promise. If the voice ever whispered again, if the closet ever creaked, I would be ready, because I had learned the truth. Fear feeds shadows, but courage locks the door. And some doors, once closed, stay closed. I closed my eyes and whispered back to the dark, "My name is Daniel, and I am not afraid." The end.